Righty guys, so as we said, I was going to run through this particular wine tasting notes, and here you have the wine tasting note for the Y Series Tempranillo, which is one of the cheapest wines we could find at the bottle. So at the top here, what you have is all your usual suspects, and you just fill them in as they are from the bottle. And you typically find this from the bottle. We then need to do an initial stiff. So we pour the bottle, and we have a look at the colour, and we do an initial sniff. And all we're looking for here is to see if there are any faults within the wine. We want to make sure that the initial sniff is so the wine is not off, and that the visuals are as per typicity, and that there's no cork or anything in the wine. Once that's sorted, you'll typically see me here giving this a 5, as long as there's no clear faults in the wine. We then move on to colour, and colour again is one of those things that we're looking for clarity. So in clarity you look for the wine against a white background, and you check to see if it's cloudy and what type of hue it's got. So sometimes you might see purples, rubies, reds. If you're drinking whites, your straw colours and all that sort of fine business. Now again, this is your personal taste and how you see that particular type of wine, and that's how you're marking it. Like, is it against its normal typicity? Like, you would not mark this full marks if you've got a white wine and you're seeing it red. So that's not what you really want to see there. So that's your colour, and typically this gets a pretty high score as well. As we move down to our aromas and our taste, we start to get into the complexities and the characteristics, and this is where your wines start to differ. So aroma, we've got this out of 25, which you can see there, and we have an intensity. So your intensity there, you want to swirl the wine, and that sort of breaks down and releases some of the smells, so then you can give it a really big sniff to assess how strong or weak the particular aroma is. This can in general determine the quality, condition and or the concentration of the wine. So that's what your intensity is. Your characteristics, this is where different types of wines have different types of aromas. So you can smell the wine and you might be able to smell fruits, flowers, spices, herbs and oaks and all this sort of fun business. Now that's where our cheat sheet over here comes into play. Because if you print off our A3, we have your typical floral, fruit, herbaceous, spices and other aromas and tastes here, the secondary and the tertiary aromas and flavours as well as some of your faults here. So this is the benefit of our A3 sheet, and yes, you can print it on A4. So they're your characteristics, and you can see I've just written them here in the notes section. And then the overall quality is how you perceive that particular quality in the taste. Now taste, this is normal, your sweet, your acidity, your tannin and your alcohols, right? So your sweetness, you should sip the wine and you should notice whether it's sweet or dry, and that particularly depends on your tongue, right? And the amount of residual sugar that is left in the wine. Typically for most reds this will be dry, and for a lot of whites as well, but you should know the acidity. The acidity itself is whether it's tart or crisp, or on how that tastes in your mouth, and you can particularly tell this if your mouth starts to water after you take a mouthful. The tannins or the bitterness, which is the tannins here, that's how astringent or bitter the wine feels, and you typically feel that on your gums and on your teeth, and this is what people call a chewy texture to your wine, and how that all binds together and how it balances. The alcohol in itself, you can sort of see here. Again, this is a score mark, but this is to your typicity of the wine and also your particular preferences. But alcohol itself is typically how the wine feels warm in your mouth. So you'll have a mouthful, and if it's very high in alcohol, it'll feel really warm. If it's not high in alcohol, you will feel less warmth in your mouth. So 14% and above is typically a high percentage alcohol. The body itself, you should notice whether the wine is light or heavy and how it feels in your mouth, and this can also indicate the alcohol level, the grape variety, some of the wine making techniques, but also the balance across everything. Characteristics are, again, this is where a wine can really differentiate. Here you can see we had maybe some coffee taste and certainly some spices on top of our original aromas. And then the finish is the length of time that the taste develops on your mouth as you're tasting the wine. A long finish up here at the 5 can indicate high complexity, but also can go for 30 plus seconds on your mouth for every mouthful that you have, and then an overall mark here. So we have some insights, which is sort of just for me, for my years of potential cellaring, and then I like to put here what I might pair this particular wine with. Now, really importantly with this, we have what's called a normalized calculation, and this is based on your particular preference in wine. So this is the cheapest wine that you've had in the last 12 months, the average price of wine in your last 12 months, and the most expensive wine that you've purchased in the last 12 months, A, B, and C. You then do these formulas, and what you can find is a normalized score based on your particular price point. So if you're buying a really cheap wine, this allows you basically to upscale your score to your final score. And then if you've got a really expensive wine, your score here will decrease down to here. So you just need to follow these formulas here and you can get a normalized score, which is really an individual preference for yourself, but it allows you to compare a cheap wine with a more expensive wine much more accurately. So you're comparing apples with apples or grapes with grapes. That's it for Bigler's wine tasting sheet. You can go ahead and download it. It is free. It's very exciting. We spent some time in it and we already have noticed some improvements that we want to do. We're going to do that in the next couple of months, but we'd love to hear from you. We'd love you to use it to tag us in on your social media posts. But please go ahead and download it. It's at our website on www.colesandcorks.com. So please go there, download it. Fucking great. Go ahead and do it. Speak to you soon. I'm Bigler and out.